In the bustling capital of Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou, the sun rose over a city alive with possibility. It was July 27th, 2025, and President Ibrahim Traoré stood before a crowd of thousands, his voice steady and resolute. "No more should we wait for handouts of expired drugs," he declared. "Africa will produce life with dignity." His words echoed through the streets, carried by the wind across the Sahel, igniting a spark in the hearts of millions. This was not just a speech. It was a manifesto, a vow to transform Burkina Faso into the beating health of Africa's pharmaceutical future. Traoré's vision was audacious, a $50 billion partnership with Canada to build Africa's first pharmaceutical megacity. This was no mere factory or fleeting project. It was a revolution, a bold leap toward health sovereignty, economic power, and a future where Africa would heal itself. The crowd roared, their cheers blending with the rhythmic beat of gem drums. Young students, market women, and farmers alike felt the weight of the moment. This was their future, built by their hands. The deal, signed that morning in a historic ceremony, was a partnership of equals. Canada, renowned for its advanced healthcare systems and cutting-edge research, brought expertise, technology, and resources. Burkina Faso offered vision, leadership, and an unshakable determination to rewrite the continent's story. The agreement wasn't about charity. It was about respect, mutual benefit, and a shared dream of a self-reliant Africa. Why Burkina Faso? The question lingered in the minds of skeptics across the globe. Of all the nations in Africa, why did Canada choose this landlocked West African country for such an ambitious project? The answer lay in Burkina Faso's transformation under Traoré's leadership. In just a few years, the nation had nationalized key industries, invested heavily in education and research, and pushed back against exploitative foreign interests. Burkina Faso was no longer a nation begging for aid. It was demanding respect. Under Traoré, Burkina Faso had become a beacon of stability and opportunity. Its strategic location in the heart of West Africa made it an ideal hub for distributing medicines across the continent. With investments in renewable energy, solar panels stretching across the savanna, and biomass plants powering new infrastructure, Burkina Faso was ready to host a pharmaceutical empire. Traoré's vision was clear. We will not just be consumers of foreign medicine. We will become producers and exporters of health for Africa. The Canadian delegation, led by Prime Minister Sophie Dubois, saw Burkina Faso's potential. "This is a partnership of equals," Dubois said at the signing ceremony. Burkina Faso's leadership and vision make it the perfect partner to bring this dream to life. The world was watching, and for the first time, Africa was not just a market. It was a leader. The $50 billion deal was more than a business agreement. It was a blueprint for a pharmaceutical megacity, an ecosystem designed to transform Burkina Faso and Africa. Spanning several provinces, the project was a marvel of ambition and innovation. Here's what it promised to deliver. State-of-the-art factories. These facilities will produce billions of doses of vaccines, antibiotics, painkillers, and other essential medicines each year. From malaria treatments to HIV medications, the factories were tailored to Africa's most pressing health needs. Using Canadian technology and local resources, they would ensure affordability and efficiency. Research and development labs. New labs would focus on creating drugs for diseases often ignored by Western pharmaceutical giants. African scientists, working alongside Canadian experts, would develop vaccines for tropical diseases like dengue and sleeping sickness, ensuring solutions were designed with Africa in mind. Biotech Training University, a world-class university, co-managed by Canadian and African academics, would train the next generation of pharmacists, researchers, and health engineers. Thousands of young Africans would gain the skills to lead in science and healthcare, ensuring the project's sustainability. Distribution hubs. These hubs would ensure medicines reached every corner of Africa, from bustling cities like Lagos and Nairobi to remote villages in the Sahel. Modern logistics would eliminate delays, ensuring no hospital shelf sat empty. Job creation. The project was expected to create over 250,000 direct and indirect jobs. Factory workers, scientists, truck drivers, and more. This meant more money in the pockets of everyday Africans, fueling local economies. Renewable energy. The megacity would run on solar and biomass energy, keeping costs low and protecting Burkina Faso's environment. The sun, abundant in the Sahel, would power the future of African healthcare. This was not just a project. It was a vision for a self-reliant Africa, a continent that produced its own medicines, conducted its own research, and trained its own experts. For Awa Konate, a mother of three in the rural village of Dori, the announcement was life-changing. For years, she had struggled to find affordable medicine for her children. Malaria, a constant threat in her region, often left her waiting months for treatment shipments that were either too expensive or expired. "I won't have to worry anymore," she said, tears in her eyes. "My children will have medicine made right here by our people." In Ouagadougou, 19-year-old Kofi Diallo, a student at the University of Ouaga, was inspired. "I want to study biotechnology and work in those new labs," he said. "This is my future." Across Africa, stories like Awa's and Kofi's were multiplying. The deal promised cheaper medicine. Locally produced drugs would cost up to 60% less than imported ones, making treatment affordable for families like Awa's. Better availability. Rural hospitals and clinics would have a steady supply of essential medications, ending the scourge of empty shelves. Faster crisis response. Emergency drug reserves would allow Africa to tackle epidemics without waiting for foreign aid. Safer drugs. Locally produced medicines, regulated by African authorities, would reduce the risk of counterfeit or low-quality drugs flooding the market. Social media platforms like X buzz with excitement. Hashtags like hashtag Africa Heals Itself and hashtag Burkinarizing trended as Africans celebrated. One user posted, "No more shall African children die waiting for shipments from faraway lands. We shall produce life here in Burkina Faso." The sentiment was clear. This was about hope, dignity, and independence. Chapter 5. Economic Transformation. The pharmaceutical megacity was not just about health. It was an economic game changer. Within a decade, it was projected to contribute 18% to Burkina Faso's GDP, transforming a nation once overlooked into a powerhouse. The economic benefits were staggering. Jobs for Africans. With 250,000 jobs created, families would have steady incomes, and young people like Kofi would have careers in science, manufacturing, and logistics. Export power. By 2030, Burkina Faso was expected to generate $12 billion annually from exporting medicines to countries like Mali, Niger, and Ghana, making a key player in global trade. Local growth. The project would spark growth in local economies, with new housing for workers, tech parks for startups, and better roads funded by the Burkina Faso-Canada Health Corridor. Reduce dependence. The industry would cut Africa's reliance on Western pharmaceutical imports by 45%, keeping more money on the continent. Burkina Faso was on track to become Africa's pharmaceutical capital. From dusty fields to high-tech labs, the country was turning dreams into reality. Neighboring nations like Kenya, Nigeria, and Rwanda were already lining up to buy medicines from this new industry, signaling a united Africa ready to lead. Canada's role in the partnership was pivotal, but not paternalistic. Canadian companies set up joint ventures with Burkina Faso partners, developing medicines tailored to Africa's needs. Antimalarials, HIV drugs, and vaccines for tropical diseases. Canadian scientists would train African pharmacists and researchers, ensuring knowledge transfer for generations. This is about empowering Africa, not controlling it. Prime Minister Du Bois said, "We are partners in progress." Unlike past Western partnerships, this deal respected African sovereignty. It was a model for global cooperation, showing how the global South could rise without relying on exploitative systems. The African Union's Agenda 2063, which called for health sovereignty and the creation of the African Medicines Agency, AMA, was a guiding force. With Burkina Faso's new industry, Africa would produce, regulate, and distribute its own medicines on its own terms. The world was watching, and not everyone was pleased. Western pharmaceutical giants, long accustomed to dominating the global market, felt the pressure. For years, they had charged exorbitant prices for drugs, keeping Africa dependent. Now, with Burkina Faso leading the charge, that monopoly was under threat. Some Western media outlets reacted with skepticism, but Africans paid no heed. As Traoré declared, "We are done begging. We are building. The deal inspired other African nations. Kenya, Nigeria, and Rwanda expressed interest in replicating Burkina Faso's model, partnering with countries like Canada to build their own industries. This was South-South cooperation at its finest, a movement to lift millions out of poverty and dependence. At the heart of this revolution was President Ibrahim Traoré, dubbed the Health Liberator of Africa. His bold vision and fearless leadership had made the impossible possible. In a viral speech, he declared, "No more shall we wait for handouts of expired drugs. Africa will produce life with dignity." His words resonated across the continent, inspiring a generation. Young people rallied behind hashtags like hashtag Traoré for Africa and hashtag Ibrahim Traoré 2025. To them, Traoré was more than a president. He was a symbol of hope, proof that Africa could lead in high-tech industries like biotechnology. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso rejected neo-colonial systems and embraced partnerships based on equality. "This is our time," a young Burkinabe posted on X. "We are not just dreaming. We are doing." The Burkina Faso-Canada partnership was a spark, igniting a fire across Africa. It was a call to every African, young and old, urban and rural, to dream big and work hard. The future was not imported. It was built with African hands, minds, and pride. Other countries were already looking to join the movement, inspired by Burkina Faso's success. The pharmaceutical megacity was a model for how Africa could lead in science, technology, and innovation. It was proof that the continent could rise above stereotypes of poverty and dependence. As Traoré said, Africa is ready to rise, ready to lead, ready to heal itself. In the years that followed, the pharmaceutical megacity took shape. Factories hummed with activity, producing billions of doses of life-saving drugs. Labs buzzed with African and Canadian scientists collaborating on groundbreaking research. The biotech university welcomed its first class of students, young Africans eager to shape the future. Distribution hubs ensured medicines reached every corner of the continent. Awa Konate no longer worried about finding medicine for her children. Kofi Diallo enrolled in the biotech university, dreaming of developing a vaccine for malaria. Across Africa, hospitals were stocked with affordable, high-quality drugs, and economies thrived as jobs multiplied. Burkina Faso had become the pharmaceutical capital of Africa, a beacon of hope and progress. The world took notice. The Burkina Faso-Canada partnership became a model for global cooperation, proving that nations could work as equals to achieve greatness. Western pharmaceutical giants adapted, partnering with African nations rather than dominating them. The African Medicines Agency grew stronger, ensuring quality and safety across the continent. The $50 billion deal was more than a business agreement. It was the dawn of a new era. It was proof that Africa could lead, innovate, and thrive. From Ouagadougou's dusty fields to high-tech labs, Burkina Faso was building a future that was bold, proud, and unstoppable. Other African nations followed, creating their own industries and asserting their sovereignty. This was Africa's moment. A continent once defined by waiting was now defined by doing. As President Traoré said, "The future is not imported. It is built right here." And so it was brick by brick, vision by vision, Africa was rising. Stay bold. Stay African. Stay woke.